Altcoin season is not even here, okay? And we hit 750 million in volume. You are not prepared for what this coin is going to do this cycle. You got to get locked in right now. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen up, ladies and gentlemen. Super exciting news surrounding Turbo. I mean, this coin has been going absolutely nuclear. When I recorded the video for yesterday, we were somewhere around this price over here of 0.0032. And oh my God, a lot of things have changed. A lot of things have changed. We have pumped super heavy. So, I did say, there might be a little bit of a pullback from this green zone. And once again, we come to the green zone, we reject for 4 to 8 hours, and then we just smash it, right? Remember, once things are bullish, when it could technically sell off of certain zones like coins, other cryptos, stocks, forex, whatever it is. But when it's super bullish, right, it enters a zone, it may sell off for like a little bit for a couple hours, and then it just says, all right, that's enough, and it just continues. And that is exactly what happened here, ladies and gentlemen, right? This is really good, right? All we have to do right now is just kind of close, right? Kind of close strong. Even if we go back down to, just 0.004, just this big range, that is going to be more than enough, right? That is going to be more than enough. If I get this big red zone, there we go. Even technically down here, right? Obviously, we want it to end really strong, but even if we technically close somewhere here, this is really good. And the reason why I say this, ladies and gentlemen, is because we are finally above this big crucial zone, right? When price dropped and we were rejecting here for a couple of weeks, we said this is going to be probably a decent buying opportunity, and then the market and everything just plummeted, right? And then we're like, all right, well, this really should be one of the final spots where we, bounce off and recover. And that's exactly what happened, right? It was on top of the last all-time highs, from a while ago, but it was off of the weekly closes, right? We saw multiple weekly candles. We touched it, and then we instantly started to reverse. Plus, Bitcoin started to pump. Plus, there's more liquidity in the markets as we expected. And man, let me tell you, we are back above this very crucial green box, this one up here. And let me tell you, as long as this weekly candle closes anywhere above, let's just say this red line, we are in the clear. So we still have a couple days to go, right? A little bit of a rejection and pullback is going to be normal, okay? It is going to be normal. Even if we were to crash, well, quote unquote crash, down 22%. Do not worry, because listen, in the last 2 weeks, okay, we have shot up at one point 310%, which means you would have made, 4.1 times the money you put in if you literally bought at the bottoms. But even just this week alone, right, if we take it to pretty much, let's just say Monday, at one point you would have been up 2.5 times your position. So, we're up 150% on just a week, or we were at one point, now we're up 107. Look, some type of rejection is normal, right? We can't keep this up always. We will pump. Okay, listen, when altcoin season happens and when Turbo will be expanding to where it's going to expand, which will be above these highs, right? Above these highs, it is probably going to have a very nice amount of good pumps consistently throughout the whole month. I'm going to say I expect roughly 4 green big weekly candles. So we would expect whatever, something like this or even larger, but times 4 once altcoin season is here. So at that point, you can expect, consistent, 15 to 35, 40, 50% pump days until we hit bear season, because that's going to indicate that that is going to be near the end of the cycle. But we will talk about, the end of the cycle once we get there. But look, yeah, we reclaim this territory. What I expect a little bit is some type of pullback. Absolutely normal, right? We might even, slow down for maybe a couple of weeks or not, right? Because Turbo has been pulling off surprises. I will say, though, there is a lot of imbalance, right? There is a lot of imbalance pretty much above this red zone of 0.0035, meaning there's not a lot of support all the way until this zone right over here of 0.0076. So even if we do have a little bit of pullback, the next time we explode, we'll probably within a week hit this territory or even higher, right? Even higher, so that when we do have a little bit of a pullback, we actually start respecting this zone all over again. After this, right? Because this is pretty much going to be most likely the blueprint. I cannot tell you the exact timing because I am not a wizard, but look, pretty much something like this, more or less, is going to be expected. And then we're probably going to get to, equal highs, pull back down probably 50% from the equal highs in this position, consolidate a little bit, then consistently build higher and higher lows. And then once we start expanding, I mean, we are literally going to go and burst for, multiple weeks. Now, here's the deal, people, right? Here's the deal. If we can reach something like this before Bitcoin dominance crashes a lot, right? Before Bitcoin dominance crashes a lot. So if we go to Bitcoin dominance, right, we expect Bitcoin dominance to go 69 to 71%. If we can go, let's say up to the equal highs and start pumping even more, right? Let's say by the time let's say Bitcoin dominance comes back to somewhere in this zone, right? Somewhere in this zone, right? And let's say Turbo at that point is going to be roughly also near its all-time highs. If Bitcoin dominance, once Bitcoin dominance crashes a good amount, because it's going to have an initial crash kind of like this, right? We're going to crash a couple percent and then we're going to go sideways. So if we are at Turbo's all-time highs and then we have this Bitcoin dominance crash, that means we are going to expand here, right? We're going to already expand here, meaning that we're going to fly for probably, 2 to 4 weeks. So we're going to see something like this. We're going to expand a good amount. Now, I don't know what price point exactly, but the reason why I'm telling you this is because this is actually going to be the best case scenario. Because I'm mentioning this because I believe Turbo can actually pull this off out of, many coins, right? And then, once we go sideways, like the way Bitcoin dominance is going to be going, right? Bitcoin dominance, I'll go back to this chart, once we drop in Bitcoin dominance and we start going sideways for a couple weeks, we're going to go sideways for a couple weeks with Turbo. And then once Bitcoin dominance drops, right, probably down at least to the minimum, I'd say, mid 40s, even potentially down to these levels, right? Once that happens, that is when Turbo would be hitting those new all-time levels that no one expected, right? So we had the initial crash of a couple percent for Bitcoin dominance, which caused us to pump. And then we go sideways for weeks on Bitcoin dominance, which means Turbo's go sideways for a while. And then Turbo has its final, 4-week pump, right? That is what I expect. The Turbo has its final 4-week pump. And then that is ultimately where we cash out. So, even if we were to play it out like literally like this, we would hit something like 24 cents, which we talked about is very, very possible, right? And to show you an example of what happened with Doge last time around, it literally, what I just explained with Turbo happened with Doge, right? So we can see that Doge had, market structure, and then it expanded massively, right? This thing expanded massively to the upside for, a couple of weeks. I mean, it's technically only like two to 3 weeks, right? It expanded massively, right? And then we can see it consolidate for a couple of weeks, and then for 4 weeks, it pretty much just straight pumped, and that's when it hit its highs. So that's exactly what I was talking about for Turbo, right? If Turbo, let's pretend this is Turbo's current highs, right? Let's pretend this is Turbo's current highs, and we're still recovering, right? If Turbo can really, really pump while Bitcoin dominance just goes down, like 6, 7, 8, 10%, then we'll have a similar situation with like what happened to Doge, where Doge has insane profits. Then, like, again, Bitcoin dominance, like we discussed before, will go sideways for a couple of weeks, sideways move for a couple of weeks. And then we can see pretty much for 4 weeks, we pumped, green 1 week. And then, yeah, second week in this context was red. But then third week and fourth week, we peaked, right? Which we always talked about on this channel. So that's what I'm talking about, right? That's what I'm talking about. It's going to be the same thing for Turbo. Now, I know it might be a little confusing, but hopefully, you can just rewatch this video and see exactly what I mean. You know, if Turbo can come back up to similar levels, Bitcoin dominance starts dropping, we start expanding, then Bitcoin dominance goes sideways like this for a couple of weeks, and then the real altcoin season happens once Turbo's already this high, then we will most definitely be hitting insane levels, right? At that point, we can be hitting very, very insane levels of 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 billion market cap. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to stay there long. Remember, people, we do, you have to, whoa, 750 million in volume. That is crazy. That is crazy. I did not even realize that. Holy, 750 million volume. Damn, ladies and gentlemen, this is actually crazy. Let's see the holders for a second, right? Let's see the holders. Sorry if you hear my computer. Gotta clear it out. We actually lost. I mean, we peaked. Okay, so we peaked in holders, and then some. I guess some people sold. People that are selling now, you know, you're allowed to do what you're allowed to do, but you really are missing the bigger picture. And this is the bigger picture, ladies and gentlemen, right? If we are hitting 750 million volume now, imagine during altcoin season. Imagine during altcoin season when the most amount of money is going to be getting pumped, when all the money is going to be flooding into altcoins. We are not prepared. We are not prepared for the craziness that's going to happen, right? And we're 144th in the world. That is just beyond this world. We were just at one point, remember, we're at 280, right? We were at 280. We're almost out of the top 200, heading into almost top 300. And look at that, 144th in the damn world. All right, we are going to check, you know, the volume in the last 24 hours globally. And we can see that, ladies and gentlemen, Turbo is 17th. Turbo 17th. All right, show all, show all. There's no way. Even then, there's no way. Let's do the volume. 17th, 19th. Wow. 19th out of the whole entire crypto market. And guys, people don't even consider us a top meme coin yet. You know, I don't even think we're technically in the top 10 yet, but I know we will be. We are hitting this type of volume during now. Bitcoin's not even at 120K. Bitcoin's not even at 130K. Bitcoin's not even at 140K. And we're hitting this type of volume. Whoa. Altcoin season is not even here, and we're hitting this type of volume. There's supposed to be like billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of more dollars entering this market over the next couple months. Hundreds of billions. And we still hit this type of volume now. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, Turbo is the truth and Turbo is the way. Amen. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.